Welcome back to the final part of my epic review series for Dragon Age, this time taking a look at the 3 major DLC releases for Inquisition. Unlike everything else so far, I have been playing through these for the first time, and it has been great discovering new stories in the world of Thedas that I haven't seen before. I feel like the DLC has gradually been improving with each game in the series, with these being the longest and most satisfying yet. Unfortunately, that also means that they are the most expensive, but there is a way around that. The first of the DLC packs for Inquisition adds a new region to the game called the Frostback Basin. It functions pretty much identically to every other region that's shipped with the main game, except that the recommended level is 20. You should take that recommendation seriously too, because the difficulty of this area is no joke. So you will probably find yourself playing through this before you complete the main story, but after you've done almost everything else. You will find the same sort of open world exploration and questing that you are used to, including oculariums and shards, astrariums and fade rifts. There is an overarching plot that is given as your reason for being here though. A professor from the University of Orlais has made contact with the Inquisition through Scout Harding because he has discovered evidence that it may be the resting place of the last Inquisitor who disappeared 800 years ago. He wants your help finding the truth, especially because there is a hostile group of Avar in the region who call themselves the Jaws of Hakkon. There is also another, friendlier Avar tribe that can be rallied to your cause if you complete several quests and war table expeditions in order to earn their trust. Eventually you will need to join forces with the Avar of Stonebear Hold to defeat the Jaws of Hakkon and prevent them from unleashing an evil that will threaten the fate of the entire world, as if we didn't have enough to worry about thanks to Corypheus. The Frostback Basin itself is roughly the same size as one of the medium-sized areas from the main games, such as Emprise de Leon or the Exalted Plains. It will take you approximately 5 hours to do everything. The environment consists of tropical jungles and a bit of swampland, which are populated by hostile creatures including giant bugs, wyverns and more. Personally, I hadn't grown bored of sealing rifts etc. by the time I got here, and I also quite enjoyed the story that was told. This DLC alone already puts what was available for Origins and Dragon Age 2 to shame, being far longer, polished and involving. I wish it was just a little bit cheaper though. The Descent begins with a member of the Shaperate from Orzammar and a high-ranking representative of the Legion of the Damned getting in touch with the Inquisition due to an increasing number of earthquakes around the Storm Coast region that have opened up fissures and unleashed the Darkspawn Horde. With the Grey Wardens being out of action, it's up to you and your followers to help them delve down into the deep roads, discover the source of the earthquakes and put an end to them. This DLC breaks away from the open world structure of the rest of the game and instead offers one long epic dungeon. The deep roads will be familiar to long-time fans of the series, and here they look better than ever, as do the Darkspawn within. In terms of difficulty, this DLC has been broken up into sections, with the first bit aimed at characters around level 15. The idea is that you're supposed to play through for a little bit, then go off and do other things, and then come back and do in the next bit, take another break and so on, although I didn't really do that. I played through the entire thing from beginning to end after finishing Jaws of Hakkon, and I was about level 25 as a result. Upon establishing your first base camp in the Deep Roads, you gain access to a new expedition table which offers missions that are exclusive to this DLC. It operates pretty much identically to the war table in Skyhold, except these missions only pertain to the Deep Roads. Usually they serve as a means to unlock extra areas for you to explore, find treasure and collect gears. Oh yes, the gears. There are so many of these. It is a brand new collectible that you will find yourself tripping over all over the place underground. Every so often there will be a locked door that will require a certain number of these gears to open. A few of these doors are obligatory, most of them are optional. I don't think you need to find every last gear in order to open all the doors, though there may be one I don't know about somewhere. I expect there is an achievement for finding them all though. Roughly halfway through this mini-campaign, the environment changes. I won't go into specific details here because that would be a spoiler, but it is nice that you aren't stuck exploring similar looking corridors throughout the entire thing. All in all, I thought this was a nice change of pace and an entertaining atmospheric bit of storytelling. I enjoyed it ever so slightly more than Jaws of Hakkon, although there isn't really much in it quality-wise. Trespasser cannot be launched until the player has completed the main story of Inquisition because it deals directly with events that transpire during the ending of the story. It serves as something of an epilogue that helps answer some questions that players were left with, while posing even more and setting up the stage for Dragon Age 4. While I did enjoy Trespasser a lot, I do have to mark it down 1 point for the way it locks important key information behind paid DLC, something that I do consider to be bad practice that should be avoided. The DLC picks up 2 years after the events of Inquisition, where there has been a period of relative peace and rebuilding across the lands of Ferelden and Orlais. The new Divine Victoria, who was appointed at the end of the main game, together with the high-ranking nobles from both countries, have called for an exalted council to decide whether there is still a need for the Inquisition to exist, and if so, who they should be accountable to. In the middle of the discussions, one of your companions discovers the dead body of a Qunari. After following the trail of blood, you discover an Alluvion, one of the ancient elven mirrors that leads to the Crossroads, a place between dimensions that allows travel between them using said mirrors. What follows after that is a tale of conspiracy and betrayal, where you will ultimately have to make some tough decisions about the fate of an old friend, your character, and the Inquisition itself. These choices should have an impact on the next game in the series, but we'll have to wait and see just how well BioWare carries that out. I have been impressed with just how much data has been transferred between each of the Dragon Age games so far, even if the keep is a bit of a time-consuming slog to fill out the first time. For the most part, the combat and the gameplay is the same as it has been throughout the rest of the game, with the exception of your mark, officially called the Anchor. For story reasons, this starts to go out of control towards the end of this DLC, and you have to make sure you blast out all of the energy building up before it overloads and blasts out itself, seriously damaging you and your party members. This sounds like a bit of a pain, but doing this in combat not only makes you temporarily invulnerable for a few seconds, but it also causes massive damage to nearby enemies, which is incredibly useful against the big Qunari brutes that you will be going up against. I thought that Trespasser really came into its own during the last hour or so, where the story becomes personal and you have to make those choices. The rest of it was fun, especially catching up with all of your companions at the beginning, but it did feel a bit like padding to make sure there was enough content to justify the price. So overall, Trespasser is probably the most fulfilling from a story point of view, but again, the story that takes place really should have been included in the main campaign anyway. £12 for each of these DLC packs is a bit of a steep price to pay for these, excellent though they are. I would have been more comfortable with about £8 each. Another option is the digital DLC bundle for £24, but by far your best bet is to pick up a copy of the Game of the Year edition, which contains the main game, all 3 of these DLC packs, and a bunch of items as well. At the time of writing, this can be found for $7.99 from game.co.uk, which is an absolute bargain. Or the digital version is about £6 right now in the Xbox Easter sale. You're looking at around 90 to 100 hours of content all told, so it's well worth it.